All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's session. So we are in week 11 of the program, and for today, we would be discussing design systems and UI components. So we have come a long way, all the way from the UX research to the wireframing on Figma, prototyping, and high, low fidelity wireframes, and all that. We also tried to do something on Figma with the fitness landing page where we applied our knowledge on colors, typography, visual hierarchy, and all that, right? So we have tried to implement what we know on Figma. So now we've learned how um we have learned some things and how we design usually, right? So now we want to learn how to design better, rather how to improve our design process. Okay? That's where design system comes in, right? So now design system is like a kind of so it's a collection of UI elements, guidelines, best practices that ensures visual and functional consistency across digital products, right? So like the right when we created our color palette, the colors that you're going to continuously use, the orange we use for our fitness landing page, the black we're using, the color for the text, color for the components, and any shapes that we had there. So that it was something we kept using over and over and over again. I did not at any point in time think of getting a random purple color and putting it into the design for the fitness landing page, right? So it shows you that design in a way is structured. It's structured. It's something that we keep using. If you remember from the visual hierarchy class, we talked about repetition. So design is repetitive. So there's some elements, there's some components that we're going to just keep using over and over again to ensure that we are being consistent in the design products, in the digital product that we are creating. Now, that is what a design system helps us to do. So it's simply a collection, just think of the word collection of UI elements, guidelines, and best practices that help us to ensure visual and functional consistency across digital products, right? So now, third collection, UI elements. We talked about UI elements. Color is a UI element. Typography is a UI element. Shapes, spacing, size, those are UI elements, right? Now, I said it's a collection. So we're bringing many of them. We're bringing a lot of them. We're collating them now. And we're making them comprehensive. We're bringing this UI element that we know that we'll be reusing. Remember, I said reusable. So after you know you're going to reuse consistently over and over in your design system, so you're going to try to create a comprehensive collection of these elements so that at any point that we want to tap into it, we can simply get it from there. So everything is structured, everything is organized, so that we can consistently give our design the visual and functional characteristics it's supposed to have, right? So a design system serves as a single source of truth for product teams, designers, developers, and stakeholders, helping us to maintain a unified experience and reducing design depth. Okay, so it just simply helps you to ensure consistency across all your design. It makes design simpler because you do not have to repetitively create something. Let's say I have created a button, right? And in my design, I probably have to use a button in 5 different places. So I created the first button and I've used it in the first place, maybe in my hero section. Then I'm in the footer or somewhere else and I want to add a button again in there. So I go over all again, creating another button, getting the text, getting the color, getting the corner radius and everything. It's repetitive, it's not smart, it's not structured. A better way to do that was to have created a button component, right? A button as a part of our design system. So at any time we want to use that button, we can simply get it from the collection that we have created already. And this by virtue of how it is, it already ensures that our design is consistent and comprehensive. Okay. So characteristics of a design system, like I've said, it speeds up design and development by reducing duplication. I just talked about this. It maintains comprehensive branding and user experience. It facilitates team collaboration and handles, and it scales effectively across teams, products, and updates. So, for example, you are working in a team, like the scenario I usually give, you're working with a team of people, you're working with a company. Now, having a design system ensures that what you're working on and what the other designer is working on, it's consistent. So I talked about this when we were talking about styles, UI components, and colors, and fonts and typographies, right? So we have to clearly state these things, these UI elements that we are using to ensure our design is always consistent and coherent, right? So we could be working on the same project. I want to use a green. I've told you now. I've told you Joy, we're working on this project. I think I want let's use green as the color for as the primary color for this digital product we are designing, right? But green as just a color is not comprehensive enough. I might start working on my design and I'm using a shade of green. Joy might start working on her design and use another a different shade of green. So a design system abolishes this mix up. So it facilitates team collaboration because now when you have created a design system, when you have created this collation of colors or fonts or buttons or any element that you're going to consistently use in your design, it ensures that when Joy wants to use green in her design, she's using the exact shade of green I'm using. So that's what a design system helps us to do. So key characteristics of a design system usually includes a style guide, right? So style guide includes things like colors, typography, spacing, iconography. Your icons are supposed to be they're supposed to be consistent. So if I'm using a particular icon set, I should continuously use that icon set. Spacing, we have talked about spacing, 4 point, 8 point system. I do not want to use 8 point system and I see that Joy is using a 5 point system somewhere else. Typography, I'm using Roboto as my font. I'm seeing that Joy is using Lato as her font. Sometimes some fonts are really similar, like they look very similar. It might be very rounded, might be hard to differentiate them unless you have a very keen eye for details, right? So Joy, without having access to my design system or without digging deeper, or maybe to check the properties panel and all that, she would look at this one and say, this looks like Roboto, and use Roboto when I use something else. So a style guide is there to guide you basically. That's why sometimes when I give us tasks on Figma, I usually ask us to add a rationale for using this. When I talked about colors, there should be a reason why you're using a particular color. There should be a guide. Someone should be able to make sense of that information. So I've said it's like you're a designer, you're not designing for just yourself. You're designing for someone and you're designing for the users, right? So this is a file, a document that you will be sharing to different people. So there should be a kind of guide that can let people understand I use this color because of this reason. Everything is intentional on our end. We're the one doing the intentionality. So the developers just have to replicate what we have done. That's front end based. We're the ones that actually through that whole thinking process. That was the whole reason why we had to do all those research and wasted. I won't call it wasting, but spend a lot of time trying to pick our users' brains. So it was not for waste, right? So that's the first characteristic of a design system. You would have a style guide. Then you also have a library of reusable UI components, such as buttons, inputs, and cards. So we're going to talk about components in detail in this class, and we're also going to look at it in Figma. right? But basically, just think you know how a button looks. We have created a button before, so think of a text in the middle, is a background color and the stroke, right? So you're going to see that a button now has things like color. A color is a UI element on its own. It has typography in it, which is a UI element on its own. Probably has some spacing because we're going to add paddings, like top and bottom padding. So it also has spacing in it. Sometimes you can some button that has icons, right? So now this is a component that we have created using four different UI elements. There's color, there's typography, we have added spacing, we use an icon, right? So now we've created this button, this component that we know that we're going to keep using it because our design is supposed to be consistent. Go to your WhatsApp, go to any platform that you're using, and you look at their buttons, right? From the very first time you're onboarded on the platform, the first button that you see is probably the last button you see. If you go to your settings, you go down, you just dig deep into the user interface, you're going to see that the buttons are just it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. So design is repetitive like that. And so to reduce duplication and just duplicating something over and over again, or going through the stress of doing it over and over again, we create this design system as a sort of collection. Just think of it as a warehouse where you go in to take things that you know that you would always need, right? So now you have this warehouse, and let's say crazy scenario, you're a farmer. So there are some things that you know you consistently need for your farm, like your hoe, your cutlass, machete, and all that. So it should be there consistently. So now, another characteristics of a design system is the pattern libraries for common interaction flows and layouts, and documentation covering usage rules, accessibility, and brand voice. So this is documentation I mentioned before. Your rationale, how is this supposed to be used? I You talked about colors. There's primary, there's secondary, there's tertiary, there's success and failure colors. So you should specify it, right? Know that this design, this file you're working, it will be shared across with a lot of people. So do not just leave things bare, not leave things empty. Document your usage, document your rules, document your rationale. Okay. So like I said, a key characteristic of the design system that it includes a style guide. Right? So now style guides are a set of standards that define the appearance of elements and overall voice and tone. So just think of style, what style means, and this is just trying to tell you that this is a guide, right? Telling you what design style is being used, or what design style is being implemented in this project. And what makes up the design, you have things like typography, the colors, the fonts, the spacing, and the components, right? So now all these things now, combination of all of them makes up the style. Okay? So like when you have some fonts or some typefaces that are big and bold, you have a bright color, you have a dim color. So all this they come together to give your design a certain voice, a certain tone. Focus on the visual. This is the visual language of the product, how things should look and feel. Remember where we are focused on user interface right now. So a style guide is simply the set of standards that define these. So example of style guides is style guides on colors and typography. Okay, you also have component libraries. So component libraries contains the building blocks of a product. And I'm just saying these things, just familiarize yourself with them because these are common terminologies that people will throw at you as a UI UX designer, right? So it shouldn't be weird or strange to you. So these component libraries, they are building blocks of a product. They include individual components, layouts, and they might include individual components, layouts, and templates, and they focus on how assets should behave in the product, right? So remember, style guide is concerned with how things should look, while component is focused on how things, how assets or your elements should behave, right? So now, the example I gave before, a button is a component. All right, now this button is taking the style, is the style guide of a button should comprise of the color, the typography, the spacing, and the iconography if you're using icons in the button. That's what differentiates a component library and a style guide, right? Style guide is focused on how it should look, like I've said, color and typography, but the components focus on more on how things should behave. So now you have a button, right? So now a components library containing a button will talk about things like if this button is clicked, so what should happen? All right. If I'm hovering on this button, what should happen? At what situation is this button color or is this button size appropriate for? So those are the different questions you'd ask yourself when it comes to components and styles in the other aspects, right? So now, in creating design systems, we usually employ this atomic design principle or atomic design methodology. If you're a science student, even if you're not, you're familiar with the concept of atoms, right? They are the smallest building blocks of anything, of matter, right? So from atoms, you go to molecules. They're just think of 1 plus 1 gives you 2. So one is an atom, the other one is an atom. Together they come together to give you a molecule, which is 2. Right? So you just think of building something from small, okay, like a small drop to a bigger ocean. That's the whole concept of atomic design. So that simply means that in design system, we start from as small as possible. We build up from the smallest atom. So a visual example or a scenario I can give again, like I've said, of the button, right? Now a button is a component. If you look at a button, we can see some atoms or some things that came together to make up a button. Like I've said before, the typography, the text in the button, that is let's say that's an atom, right? The color you're using is another atom. The spacing, when you add a padding between the buttons and above and beyond, it's another atom. The stroke you're probably using is another atom. Right? So all these came together and collectively made the molecule, which you have called a button. Right? So even the button itself can be an atom in the sense that when you're working on a hero section, which is a section of your website, now the button is now a small part or a small building block of your hero section. Right? So the concept of atomic design is that we build up, just think of building up from small atoms to molecules, right? So like I've said, UI components, they are the building blocks of digital products. They are reusable, often interactive elements used across different screens and workflows, ensuring coherence and ease of maintenance. Right? Now, this component and design pattern usually comprises of multiple smaller UI elements. Now, this multiple smaller UI elements are what I'm calling atoms. Right? So now, let's say atoms make up components. So that's basically the concept of this atomic design. So this principle was produced by Brad Frost. It's simply explaining how smaller parts combine to form the components we see and interact with. So first of all, atoms, they are simply the foundational elements of a design system and usually cannot be broken down further. So design system team combines these atoms to create UI components and design patterns. Some examples of atoms include labels, fonts, icons, animation, design tokens, color palettes, your buttons, your input field. So these are atoms. let's say you have a form. We all worked with Google Form when I asked us to do our survey and all that. So you've worked with, you see how you know how a form looks, right? So and now a form, imagine a form is your molecule. Google Form is the molecule. What's made of Google Form? Input fields. Those fields where you're asking them what is your age, what is your name, where are you from? So those are input fields, and you can see that input fields it's repetitive. It was the same input field over and over and over again in different variation in different forms, right? So now this is on this we've already gotten the idea. This is reusable. So if I'm using this input field now, I might have to use it later. So what can I do? I should create a design system that includes, or I should add this input field to my warehouse because it's something I'm going to reuse over and over and over again. Now, from atoms, we go to molecules. So molecules are UI components and patterns comprised of multiple atoms. So we are building up now from atoms to molecules. So the molecules provide functionality within a user interface, for example, a search bar, a logo or navigational link. We have organisms. So these are UI patterns that designers use as building blocks for templates and user interfaces. So some examples include navigation bars, image carousels, footers, and sidebars. So if you think of footers, if you think of navigation bars, so now you can see that you might see a button in it. You might see a card, you might see a toggle, you might see different molecules, different atoms in it. Right? So now we have moved from atoms to molecules, and I'm moving from molecules to organisms, right? So now these molecules will come together and make the organisms. So the atomic design structure can still continue to templates and pages. So you move up, up like that. So that's basically how we structure or we create this design system using the atomic design principle. Now, templates and pages, like I've said, these are full layouts incorporating organisms and components. So using components with variants like hover, active, disabled allows for scalable UI designs and consistent interactions. So now for the example I gave previously, I talked about the hero section. Now the hero section is now a page that we have created by using those atoms and molecules that we've created previously. Now we have created a page, a full page out of it, right? There's some pages that are reusable. You might have to use it over and over again. Like let's say a testimonial section of your website, right? Or let's say a this features and benefits section of your website, right? So it's possible that the features and benefits section is similar to it's possible that the features and your benefit sections are similar, right? So they might have the same, might have a similar style. So there are two different pages, but they might have a similar style. So you might have to take the page of the features and implement it in the benefit section, then change some things. That's reusing. So that's the whole essence of of application of applying the atomic design principle in design systems, right? Now let's get into it properly. We've understood the concept, we've understood how this thing works. So what are the building blocks? I've actually mentioned all this, but like I've said, color. You have the primary, your secondary, your accent colors. You have colors for states like hover, for active, for disabled, and for error. So a tip is to ensure sufficient contrast for accessibility. We understand this because we have actually gone to the website, we have tested out different color combinations, and we have seen that sometimes some colors are the contrast is not enough and might be difficult for you to see. Now imagine you with your good eyesight and compare that with someone that has issues, that has problems with their eyes, right? So We have to always ensure sufficient contrast for accessibility. Colors, we have typography, gone through all this. So you just use clearly written font family. So we have stick with the font family you have chosen for your brand. So you have to define your font weight, maintain consistent line height and letter spacings for legibility. So what all this thing means is that the colors you're going to use in your design, all the colors you can ever think of, that you think you're going to use in this design, state it out, right? Write it, like keep it somewhere, put it in your warehouse basically. Usually in the Figma file, we create a one of the pages. Not usually in the Figma in your Figma file, you have access to 3 pages if you're using the free plan. So most of the time you just create one page and you call it your design system page. So now that is your warehouse. So now you have decided on the colors you're going to use. So you're going to carry these colors. You're going to state it, right? Primary color is this. Secondary color is this. Accent color is this. My over, active, disabled, error colors. So my success colors, my informational colors is what I'm going to use for it. So I have stated these colors and I am going to put this in my warehouse. Why? Because it's reusable. There are different error messages that can pop up for somebody. Right? So that's a red color you're going to probably use to show warning. You're going to use it in probably like 50 screens in your design by the time you're done. So you do not want that you don't want a situation where every single time you're looking for red, you go and pick a random red. So you want to be consistent. So we're going to put this in our warehouse. Same thing with your typography. You're going to determine the font families you're choosing, the size variations you're going with, the font weight, the styles, and you're going to maintain consistent line height and letter spacing for legibility, right? So same thing with your spacing, 4 pixels, 8 pixels. What is the spacing system you're going with? Define it, right? Specify your padding inside your components and for your text and your icons, such as your button padding. Specify your grid too. This was what we did when we created a grid system before we started designing the landing page for the fitness application, right? So your grid, your margin, your spacing scale, your padding, define everything. Because it's supposed to be consistent. You're going to use it over and over again. So take that and put it in your warehouse also. So even as small as shadows, right? Shadows, especially when you're not doing when you're not creating flat design, specify your shadows. Shadows usually they are used to add depth and hierarchy, helping components stand out or appear elevated, right? So give your design, your gel products, make it skeuomorphic to make it look more real. Usually add shadows to give a kind of layer and depth to our design, right? So depending on how the shadow looks or what we can see, you would know that okay, you would decide that this is behind this or this is in front of this. Please confirm that my screen is moving, please. Can I get a confirmation that everybody can see my screen? All right, thank you, Ijoma. All right, okay. So now these are usually the building blocks, right? So this you can basically think of this as the atoms, right? We have stated the atoms, things like your color, your typography, your spacing, that's your sizing system, and your shadows. You have things like border radii. So there's a lot more out there. I'm going to share some design system resources in this class so we can just look at it and l- get familiar with it, right? Something we're going to use consistently if we want design to be easier for us. If we do not want to have to reinvent the wheel every single time, so we have to get familiar with how to use a design system in our design. Okay. So now building a components library, how do we then build this design system. We have understood the atoms, like we have gotten hold of the atoms to build it. So how do we go about that, right? What are the design components we should be building? Rather? So now I'm going to talk about 10 essential design components that you can start building in your design system. Sometimes you might not even have to build design system by yourself. Most companies have their own design system. Show you how important it is. Um, Android, Google as a company, we have Gmail, we have Google Photos, we have Google as a phone, Google Pixel. So Google as a company, they have their own design system. That's why if you look at any products, any Android products or any products utilizing, if you look at Google Drive, Google Drive, sorry, look at Google Docs, that's Google Documents, look at Google PowerPoint, right? So their interfaces are always similar. There's this kind of coherence, this kind of consistency. It always looks similar. So same thing when you think about iPhone products, right? When you bring a MacBook looks very different from an Android laptop or a Microsoft laptop rather, right? That's because they're using different design system. So why do you think you bring your Android, your iPhone rather, you look at your iPhone and you look at your MacBook, you're going to see that it's similar, right? But if you bring your Android phone and your MacBook, it's very contrasting. So some people are using iPhones here and they're like, I like the UI, I like how smooth it is, I like how it feels, like how the interactions are. That's by virtue of their design system, right? And most times when we are designing, we have to acknowledge this. We have to be knowledgeable about, because when you're designing a product for iOS, so iOS now is an iPhone, Apple. You're designing a product for iOS, you have to use the iOS design system, right? Because you do not want it to come to the when being in use, it looks weird. It has to be consistent, it has to be comprehensive, right? So we have to familiarize ourselves with all this. There's the material design system that's for Android. There's the iOS for iPhone. There's Microsoft. I would share the class, Danny. I would share the slides, right? I will share the slides, right? I'll share the slides also with the resources I shared last week. Okay. Alright, so the buttons now, like I've mentioned buttons over and over. So this is an essential UI design component. I don't think you can have a product without a button, because that is basically what product is made for. So as much as we're trying to satisfy our users and solve their problem, we know, like we're all business people. We know that we may building a product, I want to get gain, I want to get money, I want to get conversion. And this usually requires our users clicking on a button. The button could be pay, the button could be subscribe, the button could be a join button. Right? So we usually want them to do something. And buttons are usually that connection, that middleman that's helping them. That's why they call them CTA, call to action. That's what the buttons are usually for. So buttons provide a way for users to interact with the user interface and complete actions like submitting a form, navigating to a new page, or adding items to a shopping cart. We have the check boxes and the radio buttons. So check boxes, we know how they are usually rectangular in rectangular. They look like a square rather. So they are used to select multiple UI patterns, while radio buttons allow users to select a single option from numerous choices. So this distinction is actually quite important. Like if you can just grab onto this and hold it tightly, because this is going to confuse you when you start designing. I'm very sure it's going to confuse you. Even there are some advanced UI designers that still have problems differentiating a checkbox and a radio button, right? So for checkboxes, if you're using checkboxes, which are usually square in shape, they usually allow you to select multiple answers to a question. Let's say, okay, question like, which of these fields interest you? And the options include biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and English. So that's five options, right? So if those five options have checkboxes beside them, that means your user can click on, let's say, three. The user can click on as much fields that they find interesting. But for radio boxes, we want our users to select one option, a single option. So now for a question like this, what is your age bracket? Right? So you're saying things like 18 to 25, 25 to 30, 30 to 50. So for this situation now, you cannot use a checkbox because you're not telling your users cannot select 18 to 20 and still select 20 to 25, right? You can't be in two different age brackets. So depending on the information you're trying to extract, it informs you on whether you'll be using checkboxes or radio buttons. So we also have the text fields. I mentioned this when I was talking about forms. So these are input elements that allows users to share numerical or text content like personal details and access search, right? Text fields usually have three key properties, such as the label, the helper text, and the placeholder. So even when you were getting onboarded on the KodeCamp on the LMS platform, we all filled a form where they ask you to put in your email or your password, right? So that is a text field. Sometimes when you put in a wrong password, right, and you click on continue or you click on login, you just get there'll be this a small text to pop up and something like incorrect password, sorry, incorrect password, right? So that is where um that is where a text field comes into play because it's something that is going to be reused over and over. So for the form you probably had to fill a form up that had five different text fields, and they all have to look the same. You don't want a situation where every single time you're creating the text field, you have to check the size, or you have to check what color did you use for the stroke, or what font size did you use for this or that. So it's reusable. You put it in your warehouse, basically. So we have the toggles and the switch. So if you know, you should be familiar with toggles and switch. Let's sometimes when we want to go switch between light mode and dark mode, right? So in the UI you'd see light mode, then beside it you're going to see a toggle switch where you can simply drag it to move to between two different options. So even in Figma, I'm going to show you Figma has a toggle and switch option in the properties panel when you're talking about the booleans, right? We also have a drop down menu. So this is what is this picture that is attached here. So this is a drop down menu. Something that is consistent. You would see it almost everywhere, even in your input fields. There's some input fields that has the drop downs, right? So maybe the input field is asking you, what country are you from? And in this situation, they do not want you to type in Nigeria. So there's a drop down. You can then when you click on the drop down, you simply see different countries, and it's left for you to choose the country you're from, or choose an option from the drop down menu. So we also have cards, right? So cards are simply um they're oh like call them they're okay. They are elements or they are UI components that allows design and allows users or allows you to structure and organize your information in a way that is visually appealing and user friendly, right? So now you have a lot of information. If you look at this picture that is attached here, you have let's say when we have an e-commerce platform is a very popular place where we use cards, right? So now you have the picture of your product, you have the description, you have the price, you have a discount maybe a discount information. You have different sizes of the product. You have the owner of the person that posted the product, right? Probably you have things like the date that the discount is expiring, or the amount of stock left in that product. So this is a lot of information, right? So and you just considering visual hierarchy and everything that we know about visual hierarchy, we will not put that information just randomly. We want to organize it and make it collative, right? So all this information are describing a particular product, and I have like 20 of these products. What am I going to do? I'm going to create a card of a specific product, of one of those products. I'm going to get a card in the best way possible. Let's say I go ahead and I end up with this card here. Where I have the picture at the left, and I have the description, the name, the date, the option to share, right? So now this is something that is reusable, because now I want to feature about 30 products in this e-commerce platform. So now, me just creating one, I've created one, and I'm going to make it a component. I'm going to make it something that is reusable, so that when I'm creating the other 30, the other 29, I can simply extract the card I've already created. And what I would do is just to simply, I would change the picture and probably change text. Maybe I might have to change the name of the person that posted it, or the profile picture of the person. Right. So these are cards, and they are also components. They are reusable, and it's very, very essential for every every single design you are creating. Now we also have dialog boxes. So there are modals that create moments of friction for confirming critical or irreversible actions, like deleting something. Right. So let's say if you as a participant in this session, in this class, right, decide to leave this call. Let's say you click on the leave button or the leave icon, you will get a notification, you get a small dialogue, a modal that tells you, are you sure you want to leave the meeting? Right. So that is a dialogue. That is it it helps us when creating when we're doing something critical, something that is irreversible. Right? Because leaving this meeting now, you might miss something very important. So we want to be sure that you are this what you did not click this leave meeting by mistake. So this is also where you see implementation of those laws I talked about. So this is where we're implementing the law of error prevention, right? We know that people are prone to error. It could be your pets, or maybe it's your you left your laptop somewhere, and maybe it's your kid or your junior sister or someone that simply clicked on the leave button by mistake, right? So instead of it to delete immediately or to leave immediately, it gives you a pop-up, yeah, that allows you to rethink or to confirm your decision. Right? And this is also sometimes essential in every single application. We see something like this in different ways. It can be small, it can be big, it can be obstructive, it can be minimal, it can be very tiny, but it's always there. That's why that's why it's called an essential design component, right? Something that you would see over and over again. So we also have the progress bars. There are different ways it can look. There are a lot of ways. But I think I have a picture here. Let me check this. Oh, I can should have a picture of a progress bar, or I'll check into that later. Right? So progress bar is simply showing you your progress with completing a specific task. Right? So we are creating probably your onboarding. Yeah, we are creating all your onboarding flow for a user. You see step one, step two, step three, or step 1/3, step 2/3, step 3/3. So that gives the user an idea of their progress, right? So I'm in step 1/3. It means that I have two questions left to answer, or I have two other screens or two other things to do. It gives me an idea of my progress. Progress bar can also be But let's say when you're downloading something from a website, maybe a movie, right? You're going to see, let's say it's 300 MB, you're going to start seeing 23 MB over 300, 50 MB over 300. So it gives you an idea of your progress, right? The progress of that download, progress of this activity that you have clicked and all that. It just gives us this feedback to inform users of their progress. All these things they're essential. They also talk, talking to the laws that we have talked about previously. You don't want to leave you don't want to leave a user lost. If I click on download something and I do not see a pop-up or something that shows progress, I'm going to get frantic, I'm going to get nervous, I'm going to get confused. I will probably keep clicking on it, right? And it will download like 5 times, multiple times. So these are what we are trying to avoid to ensure that our users are using this product to the best of their ability. So we also have tooltips. So tooltip is what is in this picture beside here. So sometimes you can see this tooltip in some very big websites. It could be in an onboarding flow. So usually when you click on a product, let's say something an icon, right? A tooltip just comes up to show you to give you more information on a feature on an element on a page. So Figma uses lots of tooltips. So once you just click on anything on Figma, right? Because they use a lot of icons. It's a very dense platform. There's a lot of products and features in it, right? So once you click on anything on Figma, it's a tooltip comes up telling you, giving you more information on what you just selected or what you're hovering on rather. Right. So we also have the alerts and the snack bars. So we see this everywhere. Success. Let's say you do something, you get a success notification, or you get a warning notification, or a danger notification. So these are alerts, right? And there are different scenarios where we might have to alert our users. It's something that is repetitive. Let's say I downloaded something. Success with your download. Okay, that's good. I saved something. So that's your save. So that's what you just saved. So that's good, right? So it's the same feature, it's the same component, right? It's the same UI design elements we're using. So it's repetitive, though it's talking to different. We are talking about different activities. So one was saving, the other one was downloading, right? But it's the same. We are doing the same action of trying to alert our users. So we create a component for this. So we do not have to reinvent the wheel every single time. You can simply tap into the warehouse we have created at the very first start. So yeah, so some examples of some leading design systems. So all the design system, we have the Google Material System. This one I talked about when you talk about your Google Docs, your Google Drive, your Google present PowerPoint, even your Gmail. They all look similar. Like the interface is very, very, very similar. That's the reason why is because they use the same design system over and over and over again. The colors that you see um on on Google Docs, right? If you see a blue color on Google Docs and you see that same color on Google Drive, if you use your pen to your eye picker tool and you get the hex code of that color, is most probably going to be the same thing, right? Because they are tapping from the same warehouse, it's the same company, and they built this design system that works for them, that ensures that our design is always comprehensive, always intuitive, always consistent, right? So it has been tested and trusted. And what about design system that we should know that it's something, like I said, it grows, it's an atom, right? So we are moving from atoms to molecules to organisms, right? So it's something that we should know that it might not be perfect at first. So we do not have to kill ourselves with pressure at the beginning. It starts small, right? It's something we improve on over and over again. Sometimes you might not even think of, there might be something in your design that you keep using over and over again, but you did not think of making it adding it to your design system in the beginning, right? So but you just notice that I keep using this color, I keep using this button, I keep using this card, I keep using it over and over again. right? So at that point in your design process, if notice that you keep using this thing over and over again, what you can now do is just simply take it and put it in your warehouse, in your design system. So anything that is reusable, anything that is consistent, is in your design system. It's going to spare you a lot of hassle. It's going to make designing a lot easier for you, right? So let's go to let's preview some design systems. Okay, I think it's loaded already. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is carbon design system. So in the class slides, I attached some design system that I would like us to take a look at and just study it, right? So I'm not asking you to cram or prepare for an exam. Just study it and get familiar with it. Because sometimes you would want to create a search bar, just a search bar, and you just don't know where to start. Everything just looks odd, and you just have no idea where to start, right? That's because you have not been feeding your eyes with enough design, right? So just from now on, everything you do digitally is just everything you do with your phone, with your laptop, with any digital device is you're interacting with a user interface. So when you see something on your screen, just think about imagine you're the one that created this. Now imagine the thought process of the designer, right? So just looking at things critically. Like this is a website. I'm working at carbon design system, right? So there's a black fill here. There's their logo probably, and there's a search icon here, and there's a more icon here, right? Also, they have a side panel. So we talked about navigation, right? So you can see that they did not use the normal top bar navigation, right? That top, the one has to be up here, right? So they use a sidebar. We have talked about navigation, so this should not be weird to you, right? This should not be weird to you. So they use the sidebar navigation. So now we are saying about cookies on this side. So now this is an alert or a snack bar, right? So we have been learning these things. Try to make it more realistic. Like try to just feed yourself with a lot of information, overwhelm your brain, so it takes whatever it wants to take out of what you're giving it. It's better than giving it so little. So take a look at any user interface you're seeing. Okay, I clicked on this and the color changed in a way and all that, right? So this is interaction. So this is hover interaction. I'm hovering on this, so the color is changing. Just just be curious, right? So now this is carbon design system. So if you go to the sidebar, you're going to see designing. Yeah, then you see their design kits here. You're going to see developing. So what about design system, right? I focused on the design aspect, but a design system is more than that, right? So a design system sometimes can even include code. So now your nav bar, let's say you're working on a mobile platform. So your nav bar, right? Nav bar now, I'm talking about those four items in the bottom of your screen, right? So your nav bar now, it's something that would be used over and over and over and over again in almost all screens of your design because it's supposed to be in all screens, right? It's your navigation system. Okay? So now you as a designer, you have created it as a component in your design, and you're going to share this to the developer. Now the developer now coding that nav bar is going to also make it a component because he's not crazy to he or she is not crazy to be coding that nav bar over and over and again in all screens. So they also make it a component, right? So this design system actually is more than just the design on Figma, right? When you see design as a word, some people just think it's just the art, color, and all. But design is more like structure. Yeah, so code is also a part of, it's also structuring an application. You do not have to actually go with visuals and colors and fonts and all that for you to know it's design, right? So let's say I'm saying I want to design a let's say an eating plan, right? So you're creating, just think of it as creating something. So a design system can also encompass code, right? So that's why you can see things like developing here, you can see contributing. And you see, you can, if you look down here, you're going to see components, right? So these are components, the components we just talked about. I just talked about the essential ones, but there are a lot, right? That's why it's left for you now to go to these design systems that I've shared and take a look at them. You have, if you look here, you're going to see your overview, you're going to have your accordion, your AI label, your breadcrumbs, your button, your checkbox, your code snippet, your contained list, your content switcher, your table, your drop down. So these are things that I think we have touched one or two times. So that if it's new to you, you simply go to Google or somewhere to understand what it is, do your own research, right? So we have gone, okay, let me go to button. Let's see what they have in their button. Right, so now this is their button, right? So, like I said, your design system is more than just the button itself. The guide, that's why I asked you guys for your rationale, right? So in your design system, when you're putting a button, right, you have to specify what this button is used for, where it would be used, functionality, so that you're going to see something like usage, right? They have usage here. We talked about accessibility, like I told you, accessibility, making sure that the color is accessible. So everything I've been saying, they are not weird. These are things that people are actually doing. Products that are being created. This is actually how they are being created, right? So you have button, you have the overview. They even define the button for you here. They talked about different variants of the button, your primary button, your secondary button, your tertiary button, your ghost button, your danger button, right? You have formatting, the anatomy of your button. Okay, so this is a button. You have your text, right? Your text, you have your color, you have your icon here, and you have your background. So they have the primary button, they have their tertiary button, you have your ghost button, and you have just your icon button. And so these are the four buttons that Carbon design system uses, right? So in any IBM application, in any product they're going to create, these are the only four buttons that you're going to see ever, unless they actually come and update this button section, right? So they have made it that way. This is the system that they decided to stick with after a lot of research and reiteration. Okay? This is the system they decided to stick with, right? So they also have, so apart from the button anatomy, right? They also talked about the button sizes. What size of button are we going to be using? So they have the extra small, they have the small, the medium. So extra small, probably 16 pixels. They have small. So small for the small buttons, we use these buttons when it's 32 pixels input field. For the medium button, we use it with 40 pixels input fields. So everything is specified, like everything has been detailed down to that extent. Okay. So now imagine that this Carbon or IBM, um, they recruit a new designer or they recruit you as an intern designer, right? So you're still learning, you apply for an internship and you got it. Right? So now if you would not have to be too lost, right? Because when you can just come to their design system and you see small. So now when I'm working with a text now and my text is 32 pixels, from this guidelines that is available to me here, I'm supposed to use button size small. So I do not have to reinvent. I don't have to. think about what am I supposed to be using here, what size, because there's about one, two, three, four, five, there's seven different button sizes. So I can be confused. What button size am I using? So it's giving me both the size and the use case, right? So there's even the visuals and all that. So there's emphasis, alignment. So there's a lot of information here. So in your free time, you can look at this carbon now. There's a lot. Okay, let's go to checkboxes, right? So we talked about checkboxes. Okay, so let me go to style. What do you have in style? Okay. All right, so it's loading. Okay. But if you look at what they said here, if users can select only one option from a list, so now users can select only one option, radio buttons should be used instead of checkboxes, right? This is what I said before. Radio buttons is for when your user has can only select one, and checkbox is when they can select more than one. Yeah, exactly. So now in this, so now this is okay. Let me go back so we can see that. Okay. So now this is type. So you have public and private, right? So now you cannot select something can either be public or private. They can't be both. For a situation like this, you do not use a checkbox. You're going to use a radio button because you can only select one of both or one of many. Right? So you're going to specify all this. So most times going to see. So now this is their use case. So this is IBM design system. They use the carbon design system. So this is the checkbox. You can see machine two is selected, use cases nothing, size one is selected. So this is their checkboxes. You're going to have your date picker. So there's a lot here. So let's if we check material, let's reload this material design system. Let's go to their search. Okay, they also have okay, let's check their progress indicator. Okay. So everything is mm, yeah, so this is their progress indicator, right? This is what it looks like. There's just a line, a thin line. Then depending on your stage in the process, the line kind of moves. So we're all familiar with this. If you have ever downloaded something from Google Chrome, this is also the same. There is a similar progress indicator for their download, right? So I can say this confidently because I know that Google Chrome or Chrome rather, they have a design system. So I know that whatever I am seeing is what you are seeing. So I can confidently tell you that this is how their progress indicator looks like it's similar to this, right? So that is what a design system helps you to achieve, right? So let's go to Figma and see what can be done, right? So now we have seen what it looks like. Let me share my Figma screen. Pew, pew, pew. Yeah. Okay, please confirm you can see my screen. Confirm you can see my screen, please. Okay, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Luashun. Thank you, Daisy, right? Okay. Yeah, so this is Figma now. And if you look at Figma, I'm in Figma right now. And so this is a document I created previously. So I just call these resources. So these are different design systems. So like there's an icon resource here. There's a UI kit resource here. This is material tree design kits, right? So the material tree, like I told you, is the design system of Google, right? So you also have iOS. iOS should be here. So you have Apple design system, right? So look at it. This is it here. Apple design resources. That's usually called the human guidelines design system, right? So you can get this by yourself. Hold on. So now you cannot simply click on search for anything, right? So hold on. So now like wait, please give me a minute. All right, please indicate if you can see my screen. All right, thank you, Faith, thank you, Daniel. Okay. Now, if you go to your this is your Figma file. So you have your document here. That's your project here. You're also going to have your the team that you're working on. So different teams in here. Then you're going to go to your templates and tools, right? So now Figma has a community that helps you if you're looking for, let's say, the 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 material, the carbon design system I just looked at right now. So I am looking at it from the website, that's IBM's website or Carbon website, right? But now let's say I want to take from Carbon, right? There's some that I find out that I'm creating an application and it's very similar to Carbon, to IBM's application. So I want to use their design system, right? So sometimes you do not have to reinvent the wheel or create a design system from scratch. Most huge companies, what they do is they get from an existing design system and they customize it to your application. So we just finished looking at Carbon design system. You saw how thorough that stuff was. You saw how the colors, everything, just every single thing. This is something that a design system, a full-fledged design system can take you a year to create, 2 years, 6 months of tough work, right? So most of the times what we do is we take from this leading design system industries. So these industries that are design system are leading, right? That's why I gave you the list of them. So you go to these industries and you look at what they have done, because what they have done is obviously working. You look at what they have done, you see what how they what button states they have, what options or functionalities they have made available, and you get your inspiration from it, right? So Figma also helps you with doing this by having this community. So let me search for Now the let me search for carbon design system. I can also find carbon design system here. So let me search. I hope. Okay. So is currently searching. Right. So another way, like what you can see now, our user interface now, this is an example of a progress indicator. So now Figma is not giving you a line and showing progress like that. But what it's giving you is it's giving you it first of all showed me a wireframe, right? Just dummy boxes. So it gave me the idea that okay, this something is loading, right? And so now I can also still I can see more details, though the pictures have not still loaded because probably my network is not all that good. Right? So that is also a form of progress indicator. It did not leave me lost. So imagine if I clicked on carbon design and I clicked enter and my screen is just blank. I would be confused, right? So another example of a progress indicator is this loading indicator we usually know, this circle that is going round and round. That's also a progress indicator. What I like to do to help myself and to help my learning as a UI UX designer is to platform interfaces that I'm using, right? So I just keep an eye for things, like be keen, be looking at the different interactions, the different things, how do they do things, right? Now, Figma as a platform, they have their own design system. They have their own design system. The colors, this color I'm working with here, these colors here, and all that. If I go to their design system, I'm going to find it, right? So now these things here that I'm currently hovering on, these are cards, like the cards I talked about previously. So I've clicked on one and it's loading. So this is another progress indicator, right? A loading indicator. So all these are things, they are reusable, they are everywhere. So this is carbon design system that we just looked at. But I don't think this is the original one, right? So you're going to see different versions, right? So because sometimes design systems do not need to be too complex. Let's say you're creating a simple project and you just want something smaller, something simpler, right? So you take a big leading design system and you kind of condense it. You take out what you need, right? You take out the necessary things and you leave the rest. So that's usually what we do in the beginning stages of a project, right? So let's say it's loading now. So this is let me okay, I think this is it, right? So if you look closely, this is says Carbon Design System by IBM and two others, right? So let me click on this version 11. So now I'm going to click on Open in Figma, right? So but before you do that, you should also like go into this Figma community, right? So there's a lot of resources here. Like I've said before, that Figma is they know their users, right? They know what their users want. So like most times when I'm designing, like how I had to go to remove.vg to remove the background from that photo when I was designing for the fitness platform. So Figma knows this flow. Figma has gotten into the head of their users to know that remove.vg is a website that designers would want to use, right? So they have collaborated with these companies and created what they call plugins, right? So we talked about this briefly. So even if I can also search for things here, I can search for plugins, maybe icons. When we're designing our wireframes and we needed some icons, you can search for an icon kit here and you can save it. Right, so everything in my resources, the very first page I shared before, were from Figma community. The icons I use from Figma community, the the design system that I got, the material design system and the Apple iOS design system were from Figma community. right? So you can get that. So I'm going to open this in Figma now. I'm going to open this. So it's loading. So this is another progress indicator. And if you can look at them, they are similar, right? So different use cases, but the same thing. It's repetitive. So what they probably did, this loading system is definitely going to be part of their design system. So we are seeing it again here. The same progress indicator or loading indicator, right? So just be on the lookout for things, right? I feel like sometimes we are at an advantage as UI UX designers because what we are designing is basically what we see every day. It's in everything we do, in everything. So sometimes I could be just um in in a random place, right? I see somebody on their phone and they're in a website and something looks interesting in it. And I just ask them, please, what's the name of that website? I want to check something. Right? I've seen someone post a screenshot of an application they were using, like a fitness application. They just put a screenshot of an interface, and I had to ask them, what's the name of this application? I had to download it just so I could look at how they design things in it. Okay, so it's all around us. This is something that is already has already been created, and we want to create more of it. So we have to have a thorough knowledge of what is already created or what's already available to us to improve it. Okay, so this carbon is loading. Okay, right. Let me see if this is going to open. And these two. So all these that I got them all the from Sigma community, right? Okay. So for our next class, what we're going to so as much as we can get like we can get this design element from Figma community and from already existing design systems, we should have an idea on how to create it, right? Because you might be the one creating these design systems that people are taking from. Who knows? It might be what might interest you, might be the area you want to specialize in. There are some people that they solely create design systems, right? So their work they just create design systems. Some people that will tell you that someone that creates design systems has a more stable um job offer than a digital UI UX designer. Like someone that just like what I just do is I just create design systems. I create collections of reusable UI components. So they can tell you that person has a more stable job than a UI UX designer. We know when they talk about all this AI taking our jobs and all that. The reason why is because a design system is something that it would always be used, right? It's reusable. It's it's eternal, right? It's something you're creating something that would last forever. Something that would continuously inform a design process. Okay, as this loaded, let's see. Okay, it's still loading. So right, okay, so now this is an icon system. You can also get this from Figma community, right? So you're going to see different icons in here. And one thing you're going to know is that when you want to use an icons or an icon kit, right? It's you want it to be consistent, like I've always been saying, consistent, comprehensive, right? So if you want to use icons, rather than getting icons from different plugins like we've done previously, it's best to get an icon kit because now if you look at all these icons, they look similar, right? They all look similar. They are a bit rounded. If you notice, they have a bit rounded and playful look, right? So if I take all my icons, if all my icons from my project are gotten from this icon kit, they're going to all look the same. They're going to all look comprehensive and consistent, right? So compare this to, let's say, I mean, this. So this is the other icon kit that we are using before. Right? So if you look at this icon kit, it's not as round as the other one. It's a bit jagged and sharp, right? So imagine if I get my home screen from here, I get my home screen from here, right? And I go to the other one and I get something else from here. And I get this image from here. It's contrasting because this is rounded. It has this childlike feel, and the other one is sharp, right? So this is how we can, like, we should try to be consistent. Okay. So now if I want to create a design system now, and I get to my icons part, because yes, iconography is one of the consistent things that is it's reusable. You're going to use it over and over and over again. So I'm just going to come here and I'm going to just like I'm going to just copy this. I copy all of it, right? Because all my icons are going to come from here. Unless at any situation I don't, maybe it's an icon I'm looking for and it's not in here, and I now have to go outside. I have to outsource, right? So, but even when I'm outsourcing, I have to like be careful of the icons I'm getting. I have to look for something that's also already similar to what I'm using. And if it's not similar, I might even have to use my pen tool and adjust it. Right? So these are this is an icon kit, right? So we can all I can share this to us, but like if you go to your Figma community and you simply type on icon sacks, you're going to see it in there, right? So that's an icon kit. Is this loaded? So even a wireframe kit, even illustrations kit, right? So I'm going to send the file, right? Now this is a wireframe kit. All this can be gotten from Figma, right? So like if we had more knowledge of Figma, or if you were like more knowledgeable of Figma, right? If you're looking for a login and sign up screens, and you're looking for something to like push your creativity and inspire you, you can simply come here. So this is a wireframe kit. It has different wireframes, right? So this is the onboarding screen. It's for mobile basically. This is for onboarding screens, right? So we talk about wireframes, low fidelity and high fidelity. So this is a low fidelity wireframe. Okay. So you have your profile screen. So different kinds of profile screens in here. Okay. Just different arrangements. Right? Someone has done this and made it open source for you as a designer. So you do not have to like um go through that stress again of thinking. So even chat screens are in here, right? So yeah, that is it, right? So what I want to load is not loading. But like it's still very similar to the what we saw on the website. So when you are freer, you can simply go to Figma community and search them up. You can check on material design system, you can check Apple guidelines and all that. Right? Okay. Okay. So now before we end this class, I think we have like 20 more minutes, right? So let's just do something on so let's just create a component, right? This is our Figma file. Let's just create a component. Okay. Just a simple component so we can understand how I want to like illustrate the concept of atomic design. So in our next class, we're going to like go down, go to details on how to like actually create this design system, like in more details, right? We're going to go step by step, buttons, icons, typography, color systems, and all that. Right. So I'm going to name this components. Okay. Now I've been saying components since, right? So it's not just an English word, right? It's not just an English word. In design in Figma, the component is a feature. Actually a feature, it's an item, right? So it makes something reusable. Like when I was creating let me draw an ellipse here. Okay. That's a simple ellipse. Let me just show us something. Okay. I'm going to make this red is too bright. Let me shift this to green. Okay. So I have a simple button in here, right? So this is the button. Okay. So now remember components. When we say component, we're talking about something that is reusable. I want to make this thing reusable, right? So if you come to your ellipse, right? If you come to your properties panel, you need to see there's an icon here that says create component. That's why I said that this component is not just the English word from when we were working with the slides. It's actually a feature on Figma. So if I want to create, if I want to make something a component, I'm basically saying that I want to reuse this item over and over and over again. I want to make it universal. I don't know if that makes sense. So let's see. I guess I made a component out of this, right? So I click on this. It's now a component. And usually when something is a component, the color changes to purple. Right. So even if you go to the layers panel, you're going to see the ellipse 39 purple. The color is purple. I'm going to change this to component one. Right. So this is just a simple circle and a simple component. Right. So now for this component, so now if you go back to our properties panel now, the place that had components, now we are seeing a plus sign instead. And they are saying add variant. So what do they mean by adding a variant? Variant, like a word, like you said, just simply variation. Add a variation of this component. Because this thing is, remember, like I said, this platform was built for designers. This platform is built for designing, so they know how the design process works. Okay? So they know that a component should not be fixed. So like I said before, when we talked about the success and error messages. So now you see that the components are similar, right? But for the success messages, we're going to use a green color. But for the error message, we're going to use a red color, right? But it's the same component, it's the same box, it's the same field, right? But it's just different variants of it. Right. So I'm going to this variant is for success, this variant is for error. And so so if I click on add variant now, okay. So now it's going to add a variant. And if you notice, there is a bounding box, right? So this simply means that everything in this bounding box these are two components, two variants of the same component, right? So like for this is a variant, now going to change the color of this to, let's say, to blue. Okay. So now this is the same circle. This is a very, very simple explanation, but I'm just trying to show us that this is a simple circle but different colors, right? Let me delete this and make something more comprehensive. So let's get an icon from up here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to get this icon, this arrow icon. So this icon can mean different things. It could be error, it could be success, just it could mean different notifications, right? Okay. Right. So now sometimes like if I do not want to go through the stress of moving around on my Figma file, I can simply click on and I want to access that icon from my layers panel. But there's a lot of information here. So like I'm like, what's all this? Like this, look at this long, very long list. I can click on Alt L. So I'm clicking on Alt on my keyboard and L, Alt L. So what this thing does is to collapse the layers panel, right? It collapses the layer panel and ensures that I can find items more easily. Okay. Yeah, so now everything is instead of that long list, it's simply like this. So I know that this is my component, this is my section 3, section 2, we didn't name it. Section 1, this is e-commerce, hi-fi, e-commerce wireframe, and this is bold, this is my icons, right? If I can click on this, if I click on shift 2 on my keyboard, it goes to wherever whatever I selected, right? So shift 2 is a shortcut that says that means zoomed selection. Just means to zoom. Let's say I click on this file icon, and I click on shift 2, it zooms inside. So if this is it's important when I want to look at things at very, very close angle. Like I want to look at it very closely. I can still use my trackpad or my mouse though. Like it's just a very convenient keyboard shortcut in case you get lost in your design, right? So I can also click on shift one. Shift one means that it's going to show you everything on your screen. Everything on your screen is what shift one does for you. Right? So let's go back to the components we were creating. So let's just make it simple components. Our time is almost up. Okay. So now I'm going to drop Control V to drop the icon I just um where is it? Can't see the icon again. Let's get it again, right? So I can just click on this and Control C to copy it, right? I can click on my section, nope, my component section. I'll click on Shift 2 to zoom into it. Click on Control V to paste the icon I just got now. Okay, so this is the icon finally. Right. So I'm going to get the icon out. I want just the icon, or rather, I'm going to no, instead of doing that, I'm going to remove the grid, right? So there's a grid system. That's the reason why it looks like this. If I zoom in closely, inside there's a grid system in it. So I'm going to remove the grid system so I can work with it alone. I'm going to also remove the fill, right? So I only have the icon left. Okay, so I remove the fill. So now only the icon is left, right? But this is an icon, which is an atom. Now I'm going to get a text that's typography, which is also an atom. Alright, so my text is, let's say, let me create a button first. So I'm going to type BUTTON. Going to reduce the size to 16 pixels. Okay, so like we've done before, this is 16 pixels. I'm going to click on Shift A. Remember, so we're creating our button now. So Shift A. So Shift A gives it an auto layout, right? So it has its own background now. If you look at if you look closely, this is my bottom padding, my top padding, my left and my right. my left and my right padding, right? So if you don't look at this from here, you can also go to the auto layout in properties panel. You're going to see 8 here. Means that space the left and right padding is 8. We're going to see 8 here, meaning that the top and the bottom padding is 8. Right? So we can manipulate it from anywhere we want, either from the shape itself or from the auto layout itself. So I can just make this so let me give it a feel first. I'm going to give it a feel. It's a white feel. I'm going to give it a color. Let me mm, give it orange, or is this too bright? Give it a purple color, right? Okay, so this is okay. And then I'm going to round the corners because it's a button. I want it to be round, but not too round. So I'm going to go with 8 pixels for the button, or 4 is okay. So I like this, but I want my top my padding to be more. I'm going to make this 12. Right, so the button has more breathing room. Okay. Right. So I can also if you want your button fully rounded, you just simply have to increase the radius. So if I'm to be 32, radius is, this is a pure button, right? Now, by the time you go to you start looking at material design system and all that, you're going to see different variations of buttons. There's a fill button, there's the ghost button, there's the text button, right? So different types of button, different uses and occasions, right? So usually this fill button, in a very simple way, they usually use this fill button for more friendly designs, right? So for all these formal applications, maybe it's an investment platform or an investment website, something like that. Sometimes it's more formal and more organized and structured. You would want to use a more sharper button like this one, right? Because this one gives this is more boxy, right? It looks formal already. The other one was looking a bit playful. Okay, so like I said, I've mentioned before, depending on your brand personality, the vibe you're going for, the tone and voice of your brand, that's what informs all your design decisions, right? So I'm going to go back to 32. 60 would work actually. So I'm going to increase this to maybe 24. Okay. Wow. Okay. Now it's better. Right now, so this is my button. This is an icon. So these are just individual atoms, but I'm going to make them a component eventually. So now I'm going to get some text, some typography text, right? So I'm just going to make these atoms. In our next class, we're going to continue and finish creating this component, right? So I'm going to write text, um, heading text, just simple heading text, right? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to make this bigger. So this is 32. So this is heading text. I'm going to get this here. I'm going to make this 24. I'm going to say subheading text, right? I'm going to now take this again, make it 16, and that will be my paragraph text. So usually your paragraph text would always be 16 because when we are dealing with text, that's readable text. Yeah, 16 is the minimum you should go for, right? 16 is the minimum. But for your labels, maybe your navigation items or your labels and all that, all that can go to 12. or 10, but for your body text, 16, 14. 14 is the minimum that you should be working with, right? So this is your paragraph text, right? Right. Okay. So now these are simply atoms, right? Different atoms. You have your icons, your button, and your text, right? I'm going to make this bold. This is a regular currently, and this is bold. Okay, no, no, not bold. Make it semi-bold rather. Okay, so a simple way to so now I'm going to just bring my heading text. So I'm going to make this also semi-bold. I'm going to name this success, right? Success. I'm going to bring my paragraph text now. I'm going to bring it here. I'm going to combine those two in an auto layout, right? Shift A. The spacing is 16. So 16 is okay. Mm, or 8 rather. Yeah, so I'm going to just simply add this button into this system here. No contrasting. I'm going to add this button in here, right? I'm going to add this alert in here too. Okay, so this is we're going to refine this further, but like this, if I add a black fill rather. No, 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 no. Okay,